So going out to eat was very successful and was kind of random, but um, we jumped into many conversations, um, from language to food to movies to hobbies to activities that we enjoyed doing. But it was kind of hard having a conversation with them because we had another friend jump in the conversation. She was a girl also from Japan. Um, she was also here for studying, but I mean, it was interesting, but I kind of struggled with their accents, and phones were even involved where he would like tell me like, okay, spell this or spell that, like how do you spell it or how do you say it, and I learned a lot. Well, from two of them, I noticed that they struggle in pronouncing the R's. So when we said a word, I can't remember the word, I was like, what are you saying? Like, I don't understand you. And he kind of got frustrated. And there was another group of students, and they were perfectly fine speaking in English. And I questioned them, and I was like, oh, hey, like, do you get kind of like embarrassed or, what is that word? Like, how do you feel when you see that they're doing perfectly fine and they're struggling? And he told me that they feel bad, and I kind of questioned him, and I was like, but I mean, you're doing pretty fine because we managed to have a conversation for about 2 hours. Although we struggled, I mean, you're getting there. Eventually, you'll be there. He was in your place one day. He's like, I agree with you. And he also told me that he wishes that more American students would interact with them because they're actually curious on wanting to learn about our culture. So that's one thing that kind of stood out to me, because I read read an article and watched a video for one of my classes, I believe last semester, where it was a documentary where Chinese students would think that American students were just belonging in their group and they wouldn't want to open up to a different culture. So it was like, who's going to break the ice? And so I believe that the document supported negative facts and positive facts about culture beliefs from China students to American students, but I believe it's just that it all depends on a person. How willing are they to open up to a new person from a different culture? And I mean, Michigan State is known to have very different cultures, a lot. They range from so much, and that's one thing that I'm very drawn to here at Michigan State. I love the accents. I love learning about cultures. I've made a few friends. I've made Brazilian, Chinese, Japanese friendships, and I'm amazed. I learn something every time I talk to a different person from a different culture background. And as much as I'm curious, they're also curious about my culture. And then we went to talk about food, and he loves Mexican food apparently. So the food was really good. He enjoyed it, and I asked I'm like, what about your food, like back in China? He's like, well, we eat a lot of rice, but they watch their diet a lot, supposedly. So they're always working out, staying fit. And then we ended up talking about school, and they say that they actually like school here because they're able to question the teacher. And so, and back in China, I mean Japan actually, since they have so many students in class, they are not allowed to ask questions to the professor since he does not have time to get to everybody and time runs out. And I was like, oh, okay. And supposedly that they don't have as much homework, I believe, and here they do. So it's like less time to hang out with their friends here when they can just, back in Japan, they are always hanging out with friends, but not here. He said it's a lot of homework, so he's been spending a lot of time doing homework. And then besides that, the hobbies he enjoys doing were basketball, and he likes playing basketball and being fit here as much as he does back there. But the only difference is that back home he practiced judo, karate, and I can't remember the other two he mentioned. But I thought it was pretty cool. But he loves playing basketball here, and he enjoys the football games. So that was one thing. And then movies, we kind of have the similar movies. We ended up watching like Rocky, and then we ended up talking about the movies that they have back in China compared to here. So he actually finds SpongeBob very interesting, and I told him like I kind of think it's funny, but it's funny where it's like you'll be amazed at what your own culture has and another culture does not have it as much. So when they find out information about it, it's like, oh, I'm interesting. It's just like a little kid when they get a candy, like, oh, they're all so hyped up, and so like I get to have my lollipop. So that's how it is when they get to interact with American culture. So I thought it was kind of nice that they actually take things um, kind of like they're grateful for things that most of us are like, oh, it's just something we have on a daily basis, and they don't have that. So that was very interesting. And then we ended up talking about school with my other friend, and he was like, yeah, well, for school, you actually have to work for it over there in Mexico. Unlike here, it's like you come to school, you have everything nearby. Over there, you're like walking I don't know how many miles just to go to school, and then having to do your work and all this, and it kind of made me reflect on like, yeah, most people here take school for granted, although they don't want to. We actually do. We take a lot of things for granted until you talk to a different culture, and you're like, you begin to wonder all these thoughts, questions you run through your mind, and you're just like, wow, like, how hard do they have it? And then I wonder, like, no wonder we bring a lot of attention with different culture, why so many cultures want to come here, because America actually has a very different structure and everything, not just school, jobs, homes, lifestyles. We run very different compared to any other country, and you will never find out unless you go out and you try it and you experience. But as much as I was curious, he was curious. He ended up asking me many questions, and there's some questions where I was just like, how do you think of them? Like I don't know. You kind of throw me off in some of the questions he asked me, but really had a very good conversation, and we actually tend to meet up at the game room, play pool, watch movies, eat here at the cafeteria here. Every time I see him, it's a hey, or how are you doing? And he is not shy at all for speaking anymore. He was quiet and very kind of curious, but didn't want to show it. But now it's like it's open. Like if I've met him for like a year or so, but I'm looking very forward to having more interactions with my two